So before I get into the current political climate, I'll talk about the history. Cameroon is a Central African country with a population of approximately 25 million people. Its official languages are only English and French, with 24 major African language groups and over 250 languages total. So, if we're going to get into history, we have to talk about colonialism. So it was first colonized by the Germans, but since they lost World War I, it was split between the UK and France. France got most of it, and the UK got a little bit. So there's the France got French Cameroons, and the British got British Cameroons. So later, there's this thing called, wait for it, independence. And when they were breaking free, a lot of stuff went down. So in January of 1960, French Cameroon got its independence. But the independence of British Cameroons was a lot more debatable. It wasn't as clear. Because there was multiple parts. So the upper two-thirds was Muslim. And they were like, yeet, let's join newly independent Nigeria because we're Muslim too. And there's a lot of Muslims in Nigeria, so they went along with that. But southern Cameroon of the British Cameroons was a lot more complicated because they really didn't identify with Nigeria, which they were offered to join in free association through a plebiscite by the United Nations. The other option of that plebiscite being, hey, you can join French Cameroons. But they were supposed to be given a third option of independence, of being on their own. They were never given this option because the UK representative to the UN Trustee Council was like, ha, they don't deserve that. They don't get this freedom. We can't have that. And they just didn't allow it to happen. And that's why they were forced to negotiate with French Cameroons, because they didn't really want to join Nigeria. But nothing had really been decided yet. Negotiations hadn't finished. They'd never agreed on a constitution. But yet, Southern Cameroons was forced to join French Cameroons. And that's a lot of their justification, modern day, for why they want to break away. The main issues between the two being one speaks mainly French, one speaks English, which doesn't seem like a big deal until you think about how many laws have to be written in a language you understand them. Like the US, all our laws are in English, so we understand them. But if your laws are in French and it can translate weirdly, that causes a lot of problems. And also, if judges are French and you're English, how are you going to understand that? A third problem being they have a 75% literacy rate in Cameroon, but some people don't even read or write English or French. And that's a problem. And other major languages that aren't even considered into the official languages are English Pidgin and Francanglis, also known as Camfranglis. I tried my best to pronounce that. So all these languages have to come together in English or French to be really understood mainstream, but that's not always the case. So this is kind of like Belgium, with poor representation of the many language groups if you're in certain areas. And even if you are in these areas, in this case, you don't get represented. In Belgium, if you're in a German language section and you speak French, it can be very hard to thrive economically and live every day because everything around you is in German. And it's really hard, and it's not like they're really going to include you because they have this established zone for a reason. So, the controversy really starts building up in 1980 when the elites of southern Cameroon broke away politically from the federal government of overall Cameroon. It only got worse when later on they started installing French judges in southern Cameroon, even though they speak really only English and other languages. There's not much French speaking there. And the situation with the judges, alongside voter suppression, forcing them to learn French language and culture. And in addition to this, not even letting them have autonomy. They were trying to negotiate, they honestly did. But with all this failing, they were rightfully infuriated, and this led to the 2016 teacher and lawyer strike, in which they sent a ultimatum to the central government of Cameroon. And this basically said, hey, send all your French judges back, and these two areas of southern Cameroon, yeah, they're together. Now they are the Federal Republic of Ambazonia. And you must consider that there's only 20% of overall population of Cameroon that speaks English. And so they're a minority to begin with, and the central government really doesn't care about them. They think they can get away with anything. And after suffering all this abuse, they try to break free. And after this declaration of independence, there was a government crackdown, and it killed some civilians, over 10. And in the counterattack, over 10 Cameroonian soldiers were killed, Cameroonian. This awful incident led to outright guerrilla warfare in southern Cameroon, and it's just going on. It's versus separatists and the central government. It's just going back and forth. And now, an official declaration of war has even been made against these separatists and the breakaway groups by the central government of Cameroon. And if things continue to escalate, it could lead in a horrible civil war that has devastated Syria and South Sudan and many other countries, and especially Yemen, though. So, hope for the best for you, and that's all.